Mental fitness. Mental fitness, boy. Now this is one of my favorites because it's how we think. It is, if we don't change our thinking, it's very hard to be resilient. You have to see the world through a different lens. Resiliency, of course, is about bouncing back, having that elasticity, but it's also about how I see, how I think. Perpetual optimism, getting rid of stinking thinking, getting rid of those negative viewpoints. Everything is negative. You ever been around people like that? Maybe we're like that. We're the one that's just negative all the time. Everything is bad. The world, catastrophic thinking, generalizations. Everybody's bad. Politics are bad. My leaders are bad. I'm bad. I mean, just, have you been around people like that? No? All right, nobody's going to admit. Yes, I got a one nod of a head. Thank you, sir. All right, so we want to change that and hunt for the good stuff. How are we to be mentally fit? It's by hunting for the good stuff. Find those positive moments. Create positiveness around you. The other day, I was walking down the hall, and you know I hardly smile. It's very hard. And so the lady, she stopped me. She says, Chaplain, you're not smiling the normal big smile I see you. I don't even know if I'm smiling or not, to be honest. But she called me on it. She says, you're not smiling. I said, yeah, I got a lot on my plate. I'm thinking about, PCSing, and I got suspenses I'm behind on, and taskers. And I was going through the hall, and I was literally seeing like these lines. I don't know if you do it, 1, 2, 3, task. And that's what I was focusing on. And so she said, you're not smiling. But just that moment of her stopping me, social fitness, right? Making me challenge my mental fitness, and it gets you thinking. So, okay, yeah, she's right. I need to be my normal self. Don't worry about carrying the weight of the world. Just keep on going. Okay? And so that's important. So identify and correct the counterproductive thinking. All right? Next slide. All right, last one. I'm going to talk about is spirituality, because that's another one, spiritual fitness, right? Fourth one. And General George C. Marshall says, military power wins battles, but spiritual power wins wars. I love that quote. Spiritual power wins the wars. Military power wins the battles. And I was like, how does General George Marshall, how does he know that? How did he know that even back then during the World War II era? Well, first of all, let me tell you a little bit about him and why I put resilient leader there. He was a 5-star general. Not only that, he came up with the Marshall Plan after World War II to reconstruct Europe. He became, and I know you're not going to know these facts, but he became the Secretary of Defense and the Secretary of State, and he won the Nobel Peace Prize for his work in Europe. Amazingly. In fact, Winston Churchill, which I saw that movie recently, that was a pretty powerful moment in time when he had to make those tough, bold decisions. But Winston Churchill said, this perhaps, General George Marshall, perhaps is the greatest military mind the world has ever known. Isn't that amazing? So he said this quote, and I'm like, why would he even say this quote? Well, many people were spiritual back then, I get that, but that's a powerful quote. Now, this is from the Handbook of Religion and Health from Oxford University. They have found that people who practice their faith, Hindu, Buddhist, Jewish, it doesn't matter, Christian, if you practice your faith, they have found that you are more resilient. Go figure that. How did they find that? Empirical evidence. It gives commanders more of what they want and less of what they don't want. In other words, less alcohol abuse, but greater satisfaction in life, positiveness, greater marital satisfaction in relationships, less depression, decreased suicide. And what you see in the red are the actual studies that were conducted and the percentages to the far right. Isn't that amazing? That's an amazing slide, and we show it everywhere because faith actually works. Now, we always say, if you don't have faith, it's okay. But I'll tell you a faith story. Because not everybody is spiritual. Not everybody will relate to that in that sense. Some will argue with me and say, no, Chaplain, everybody is spiritual in some way or form. Okay, I can live with that too. But here's a story. The African impala. You know what an African impala is? It looks like a deer almost. But the African impala is about 3 feet high. That's it, and 3 feet in height. It's fast. But the great skills of the African impala is that it can jump in 10 feet of height and 30 feet in distance. I mean, it's amazing. You ever watch those African safari videos, right? But if you can capture an African impala and you put a wall about this high with no roof over it, just put a wall where it cannot see. So maybe 3.5 to 4 feet. And that African impala will not jump or escape. Anyone knows why? Because it needs to see where it lands. See, the African impala doesn't have faith like that. It's not going to jump if it can't see. Well, that's the same thing with most of us. We have the ability, we have the capacity to easily jump out of the situation we're in, but we don't have the faith because we can't see where we're going to land. So I thought that was an interesting analogy for us this morning, an antidote, because it's important if you have faith to exercise your faith.